Jim Candy, Part 5, Chapter 13. When I pulled the Jeep into the driveway after school that afternoon, my dad was sitting on the porch with a football in his hand. "I figured you'd be a little tight," he said, "so I thought we could head over to the park, shake out some of the jitters." I was tight. "Sounds good," I said. "Just let me put my backpack in the house." It was gray and windy, a tough night for quarterbacks to throw. As my dad tossed the ball to me, he told me not to think about last year's game. "That one is over," he said. "What happened then has no bearing on tonight." Around 4:30, we returned to the house. I climbed the stairs to my room, put my duffel on the bed, and unzipped it. At the bottom, wrapped up in the towel, was the kit filled with the vials of XTR and all the other stuff. I was about to take it out when my dad knocked on the door, opened it a foot, and leaned in. "You better get moving," he said. "If your coach is mad at you already, you don't want to be late." I shoved my extra socks into the duffel. "I'm going right now," I said. He stayed rooted into the doorway, his eyes on me. No way could I pull the kit out without his asking what it was. I zipped my duffel shut, slipped by him, and headed down the stairs. When I arrived at Memorial Stadium, the locker rooms hadn't been opened. Drew and Deshaun and a few other guys were standing around out front. I sat down on the curb, my duffel under my knees. Finally, the guy with the key showed up. I carried the duffel inside, careful to treat it the same way the rest of the guys treated theirs. As I put on my gear, my heart was pounding like a drum. It would be too unfair to get caught now, when I wasn't even going to use this stuff. Before every game, the adrenaline flows, but this game was like no other. It was a championship game, 2 undefeated teams, and it was a revenge game too. As game time neared, guys started hollering encouragement to one another, shouting how this year was our year, hitting shoulder pad to shoulder pad, helmet to helmet. Carlson gave us the final instructions, which were all about not getting too high or too low, but to stay on an even keel, because it was going to be a long, hard game against a worthy opponent. It all sounded good, but everybody was already way over the top, including Carlson. Beads of sweat had formed across his forehead, and his nostrils were flared. 100% effort, he shouted. 100% concentration. Now, now, now! Screaming and howling filled the locker room. My ears were ringing. I couldn't tell my voice from the voices of my teammates. Somebody grabbed a hold of me. I turned around. It was Deshaun. His eyes were like saucers. I'd never seen him like that. "It's our turn!" he shouted. "Our turn!" Somebody grabbed him and spun him around. Then somebody else started pounding on the lockers, and everyone was pounding, and the volume kept rising higher and higher, and I was electric from toe to head. This wasn't a game to hold back. Not now. Not against Foothill. Everything the team had worked for all season, all off-season, absolutely everything was riding on this one game. It wasn't my brain that decided. It was my body. I picked up my duffel and headed towards the bathroom. I went to the last stall, stepped inside, and locked the metal door behind me. I could hear the shouting outside. I knew that Carlson would release us through the tunnel. I cleaned my skin, cleaned the needle, and then filled the syringe with the XTR. I pushed the plunger forward, forcing out all the air, not stopping until a few drops of liquid dribbled out. Then I jabbed the needle into my flesh and pushed down. A little more isopropyl alcohol, a quick massage of the injection site, everything back in the duffel bag. It was done. I took a couple of deep breaths to compose myself. When I felt completely relaxed, I slid the metal locking bar back, pushed the metal door open, and stepped out. Drew was standing right there, right in front of me, blocking my way. I felt myself starting to reel as if I were on a ship in a storm. "What are you doing?" he said. I don't know how I heard him. The screaming was still going on outside the locker room, and his voice wasn't much more than a whisper. But I heard him. I gave a confused laugh. "What are you talking about?" "What's in your duffel?" he said. "My duffel?" "Yeah, Mick, your duffel. What you got in there?" "What do you think? My street clothes, some tape, a water bottle." "Yeah? So why bring it to the John?" He motioned with his head toward the stall. "What were you doing in there, Mick?" My ears were burning, my heart was pounding, but somehow I kept my voice calm. "I was in the John, Drew. What do you think I was doing?" "Unzip the bag, Mick. Let me see what's inside." I stared at him, unsure what to do. And then I was saved. Coach Brower leaned his head into the doorway. "Move it, guys. Your teammates are halfway through the tunnel." Drew turned and headed out the locker area. I followed him, found an open locker, shoved my duffel inside, and then ran to the tunnel. A second later, I was screaming along with 50 other guys as we raced onto the field. Okay, so this build-up of the Foothill game, this is like their big rival. Mick, he's like, we have to win. He doesn't even know if he's starting or what this game's going to look like for him. But no matter what, he's like, I've got to be at my peak performance for this game. So he slips into the bathroom with his duffel bag again, takes the XTR, and Drew catches him. And so now this is twice Drew has seen him coming out of a restroom stall with his duffel bag. So Drew is extremely suspicious, but they are not able to finish their conversation because they are interrupted by a coach.